Hello everyone, it's Jo here with another video from Time for Tea Designs. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how we made this penny slider card with our Warm Winter Wishes stamp set as part of our Facebook Live event that we do every Thursday evening. So this is actually one of my favourite cards I've made this Christmas, so I'm really excited to share it with you. I also used some elements from our new Christmas Deer stamp set and some of our new cardstock. So we've got the Tropical Teal and the Moon Mist cardstock that I'm going to use for my card base and my background. And I'm going to use the Best Fishes die set, which includes these great banner sets for your sentiments. Also the Best Fishes line die, but also this great frame, and this is where the slider die element comes from. So it's a really good set, that one. So we're going to use the slider element from that today. So first up, I stamped my images. So I'm just stamping the little penguin, the Christmas tree and the bauble, and that's what's going to make the images for our card today. And we're going to create the effect of our penguin sliding through the snow in his slippers to hang his bauble on his tree. So I'm just stamping that out using some Memento Tuxedo Black ink, as I'm going to be using my Copic markers to colour in today. And I've just added some extra baubles there so that we can decorate the tree with those. So I'm going to start colouring my tree branches using my lightest shade of green, and I will list the colours at the top of the screen that I'm using. And I'm using a flicking motion, flicking strokes towards myself, starting with more pressure at the top of the stroke and releasing the pressure as I move down. This gives the illusion of the branches. And also makes it easier for me to blend the two colours together. So I don't really have a mid-tone green, so I am using quite a dark green on top of the first shade that I put down. But this is blending out quite well with a little bit of pressure. Excuse me, with the first colour. And then my darkest colour, which is I believe is the pine green, is just creating a bit more depth underneath those other branches. So after that quick demonstration, I've passed this over to Ant so that he can have a go at colouring that himself. So he's using the same action, that flicking motion towards himself, just to create those branches. And while he's doing that, I'm going to cut my card base using our new Moon Mist cardstock. I'm also using the largest die from our Hello rectangle stitch nesting dies, and by placing this on the edge of a folded piece of card, as you can see here, I'm going to avoid putting the cut line on that fold, and then I'm going to cut out my card blank, and that will mean that the fold stays in place, it doesn't cut that line, and we have a perfectly sized card base. So I'm just going to trim down my card so that it will fit through the die cutting machine, and I'm going to apply some washi tape to the card so that it doesn't move around in the machine. So I'm just going to make sure that that is stuck down really well and that it's positioned perfectly so that that cut line doesn't cut through my cardstock, and we still get some of that stitched line effect. So now that's gone through the die cutting machine, you can see there I've cut my base, and Ant is just finishing up his tree by adding some brown to the trunk. So now I'm going to colour up my little penguin, and I'm using the Toner Grey Copic markers here to colour him in. So I'm starting with my T3, and I'm just laying down a base of colour there to saturate my paper. This is our A6 pre-cut super smooth cardstock, so it really does help when you're colouring with your Copic markers to get a really great blend. So I'm adding in the second of those toner grey colours, the T5, and then adding some more depth with the darkest of those greys. So what I did realise once I was doing it was that I needed to bring that darker colour a little bit further round, so that he looked more like a black penguin than a grey penguin, which wasn't the effect that I was going for. But I wanted to create some depth and dimension, so by using the greys we add highlight and shade and shadow. So the final portion is to just add a little bit of highlight by going over those lighter areas with my lightest grey, and that creates the effect of a sheen to his coat. Just using some basic yellow shades for the star on top of the tree. We are going to cover that with some stickles later to give it a shimmery effect. And then moving on to his slippers and the bauble accessories. So I'm going to use my shades of BV00 and 000, as well as I think it was the BV04. I don't have I don't have a mid-tone for these shades, so it did appear a little bit dark. So I am just using a technique of popping my the tip of my lightest Copic marker onto the tip of the darkest, and then using that to create my mid-tone. And this is a really effective technique if you don't have all the colours that you need. As long as you've got the lightest and the darkest, you can create a mid-tone yourself just by using this technique. So you see I've just done that again there. And I'm going to use this same combination of markers to now colour in a couple of those baubles that will be hanging on the tree. So just doing some really simple colouring here. These are the colours that we're going to be using in our card. So I'm just popping those at the side of the images that I've already coloured to decide what that third colour should be. And we decided collectively, we put the question out to everyone that was watching the live, and the consensus was pink would be the best colour. So I have picked an RV shade of pink. That's because the tone of that particular marker will work well with the BV tones that we used, the lilac-y mauve tones that we used for the slippers and the base of the tree. So Ant's helping me out here by very kindly die cutting all of our images that we've just coloured in, so that I can make a start on my background panel. So I'm just die cutting that out with the next size down of nesting dies, and creating that background panel. And within that scene, I want to create a snow background, but in silhouette, so it'll just be a white background. So I haven't stamped the image that comes with this die. It's part of the Christmas Deer stamp set. I'm just going to cut the shape out of some plain white cardstock. So I've done that, and I've snipped off the end just with my scissors, and I'm now going to die cut the edges of that with that same size nesting rectangle die, so that it has that same nice stitched effect around the bottom, just to keep that consistent with the rest of the card. I did feel I needed another silhouette of the trees on the other side of the scene that we're creating, so I've cut another section out, and again I'm just trimming off the edge, and I'm going to resize this so again that it fits with the bottom of our card, and I'm going to layer those up. So I will flip that one over so that it's on the other side of our scene. So now I've decided where my slider element needs to be. I'm just popping that through the die cutting machine as well, so we've got quite a bit of die cutting going on here, but once this is complete we can really start constructing our card. So this is the really fun bit. So for the background panel, I did feel that it was a little bit blank, so I wanted to add some interest with some snowflakes to really add to our scene. So I've taken one of the snowflakes from the Christmas Deer stamp set, and I'm just randomly stamping that across the top half of my background panel with some of the Wow Embossing ink. So we will then add some of the bright white embossing powder to create some bright white snowflakes. So you notice there that I did use my anti-static bag first, just to make sure that we didn't get any of that powder anywhere else on our background, and that we got some nice clean crisp images. Liberally applying my powder, flicking off the excess into my scrap piece of paper, and just handing that to Ant for him to kindly clear up for me while we go ahead and we apply some heat. So I went a little bit off camera here, so apologies for that, but I think you can see the effect there as that powder is melting. It looks really, really effective. So on to the construction of our slider. So I've used quite a long piece of shaker tape here, and it's a thick piece of shaker tape. It's at least 3 millimeters, which is what I would recommend that you use, and this means that he doesn't tumble around and spin around. If you use a smaller piece of tape or foam tape, you will have him spinning around and tumbling. So we used a larger piece so that he stood upright, so that when he moves along the channel, he will move in the right direction towards the tree. And I'm doubling up my shaker tape here to add to the back of this penny panel. This is because we need the depth to allow our penny to run nice and freely without any obstruction. So we're going to line all the way around our penny, being careful not to get too close to that penny, because again we want to allow it to be free to move, but we want to make sure that our cardstock has got enough support and it doesn't bow or bend when it's being used. So we've added all of our tape, and now I'm just lining this up against the second snowbank that I created, just making sure that that's nicely lined up. And that will cover all of our shaker tape on the back, and now you can see that that allows our little penguin to slide. So I can pop our snowflake background piece over our card blank there that we've created earlier, and just using some liquid glue to make sure that that sticks really well, and again some liquid glue onto the back of the slider panel that we've just created, and just lining that up with the base of the teal coloured cardstock. And again, he's still moving nice and freely, so we can now add our other elements. So the tree with some liquid glue there, just attaching that to there, and you can see that he moves perfectly up towards it. He just needs a little bauble on his flipper so that he can pop that on the tree. So I'm just using my quick sticks tool to add the bauble to his little flipper there, and then I'll add some more of these just randomly to the tree as well. So just popping a dab of glue and then just making sure that they're positioned nicely, and like I say, this is I do really prefer using liquid glue for this, because it does give you that extra time, that wiggle room time. Now, one thing that I always forget when I'm planning cards is where my sentiment's going to live. It seems to be the last thing that I think of. So again, I've done the same thing here, but we decided on the Merry Christmas, and I've just used the embossing ink to stamp that onto some of the Moon Mist cardstock. I've covered that completely with the bright white embossing powder, and now I'm going to apply some heat using my heat gun. So I have warmed that up for a few seconds beforehand to help with warping of the cardstock, and you can see as the powder melts that creates a lovely bright white finish. So it does show up really nice on the lighter grey. I wasn't sure whether it would, but you'll see in the pictures afterwards that it does make for a really nice nice effect. So we're just going to use the sentiment die that comes in the Hello Nesting die set to cut out our sentiment. And before I add that to my final project, I'm going to go over some of my snowbank with the Stickles Stardust. Now, because I'm putting this on now, obviously it's going to be wet, so it means that my little penguin has to stay where he is for the moment. So but I will show you him sliding around once everything's dried at the end of the video. And I'm also going to add some of the unicorn stickles to our star, and that makes it shine. It really picks up on the colour underneath and makes a really nice effect. Some of the finishing touches then are the black glaze jelly roll pen, and then some Nuvo crystal drops to the beak and to each of those baubles to make them shine. So now we're ready to add our sentiments. That's been through the die cutting machine, and I've just snipped off the end so that it's the right size for our project. And I'm going to use some of that same shaker tape to add some dimension to that that little sentiment there, and I'm going to place that in the space above our snowbanks. So I think we can call our card complete. Because the stickles aren't fully dry, I had to wait before I could demonstrate our little penguin moving backwards and forwards to pop his bauble on the tree, but you can see that that works really well and is really effective. So I was really pleased with how this worked. We used a lot of our previous collections of dies, a lot of really nice images and stamps to create this really sweet card. I really hope that you enjoyed the card demonstration today. If you did, then it'd be great if you could like and subscribe to our channel and head over to the Time for Tea Designs blog, Instagram or Facebook pages, and do join us for our next Facebook Live that's next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Thank you ever so much for watching again, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye bye now.